Hey, coaches. When you're coaching a client as they prepare for a difficult, high risk, or just plain important conversation, one thing that you can offer them as an exercise within the session is role play. Role plays allow the individual to reflect on what they want to say, to practice what they want to say, and then refine that with a few extra practice sessions. One or two things to note with role plays. First, you might not use the language of role play. Some people are a bit uncertain, they feel hesitant. I usually just say, hey, would you like to practice this conversation? There's not a need for there to be a sense of acting involved. We're going to try to keep the acting as limited as possible. And that brings up the second point, which is a general rule. As you do a role play, the longer it goes, the more you're going to be guessing what needs to be said, what this theoretical conversation could turn into. So generally, it is best to keep role plays tight and to the point, focusing on the core parts of the conversation the person finds most important to practice. And that's something you get to co-design with the individual as you prepare to do the practice. So let's take a look at the process for facilitating a role play. And it starts with recognizing an opportunity, much like any coaching agreement, moving into the coaching session where you want to offer an exercise or tool. You set the agenda openly, and if you notice an opportunity where role play could be valuable or useful, then you could offer it then as soon as the agenda setting is done, or in the midst of the conversation as the client is considering, how do I really get prepared? So after you've gotten that initial permission, then the real role play process starts. Again, we're going to be talking about it in terms of practice, and you start by looking at the most important part. It might be how the conversation starts. It might be, as a part of a conversation, how they bring up the difficult piece, what the client would like to say, help them identify that, and then just practice that little piece. It might be 20 seconds, 30 seconds long that you practice. We want to just focus on that little bit of the conversation. So you prompt them, they share. You might pause there. You might prompt them one other time, and then they share again. You pause. And that leads to the second part of the process. You reflect and agree together where to go next. As you agree together to do another iteration, you can offer an opportunity to do a bit more of a next draft. And that next draft might have 2, 3, 4 exchanges. You don't want to go too far in, though, because, again, you have to guess more and more what this other person, the boss, the peer, whoever the other individual is, you have to guess what they're going to say. Again, you step back after that practice, reflect, and determine how many more practices we'd like to do. And just as an extra note to the coach, as you do these role plays, lean in. You need to be willing to do a bit of the acting, and you can get some of the acting direction from the client. Don't over-focus on it. It's not overly important to be exactly like the boss would behave, but get a bit of that direction from the client. Do your best and ask if you need to adjust at any point. The purpose is for you to give them a space where they don't have to think about much. They just get to practice. So lean in, make it comfortable, make it very light, make it very much focused on the draft and the exercise of it all, so that as they get more and more comfortable and they reflect, they can feel more confident as they have that difficult conversation. So your role as the coach is to guide them through this process. It is a pretty hands-on process. You got to get that permission at the beginning. You help them determine where to go with the practice, how long to go. And every step of the way, you're asking, how did that feel? What did you learn? What would you change? What are you noticing in yourself? What are you recognizing about this relationship? All of these good coaching questions that you should find very natural in that setting, you want to leverage them between 1 or 2 questions between each practice session. Thank you for listening. I hope this is a useful exercise. It is one of the best things you can offer in a coaching session for anyone preparing for a difficult conversation. So get to practicing. We'll practice this as part of our conversation, our coaching session, training session for our next class. And be ready for that. Have a conversation in mind. And thank you so much for growing as a coach.